Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's CC-Webinar.live keynote and panel discussion session. And thank you for joining. We would like to also thank to our official sponsor for hosting today's CC-Webinar.live session. Now, I would like to pass on the microphone to our moderator to introduce the speakers and panelists. For audience, if you have any questions to our speakers, please do use the chat box option throughout the session. That's all from my side. Now over to our moderator.
Thank you so much, Aurelia, and welcome everybody out there in the world. Thank you for joining the Care Community webinar sponsored by Telefónica Global Solutions. We're going to talk today about a very serious topic, which is the data centers with the end in mind. Now, how operators are responding to calls from outside for a more sustainable way of building and operating data centers. And with me today, everybody, we have a huge panel with us. So I'll give them a quick minute to introduce themselves. And so over to you, Iman. Welcome.
Hi everybody. My name is Iman Zulfi. I'm actually the head of innovation and product development in Bahrain telecommunication company Telco. I look after Global Zone, which is the carrier neutral data center, and which has been launched in 2019, and we have expanded the locations to another locations actually. So we have Global Zone 1 and Global Zone 2. And data center is one of the biggest, let's say, pillar in our strategy, even the fact, or with all the, let's say, the cloud services providers, hyperscalers, directions to come and expand their cloud services in the region. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Iman. And let's go to Germany. Jens, hi, how are you? You're on mute, Jens. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. So this is, I just returned from holiday, so give me a second to step back into business, right?
Of course.
So yeah, Jens Leuchters, I'm Managing Director of New Telco. We're a small, medium enterprise data center company. So we are in data center and co-location business, mainly in the carrier community, so well known there. And we are currently building our own new data center here in Germany. So this is a very interesting topic for us as well. And thanks for the invitation, Eric.
So that's very exciting times for you guys. So congrats on that, Jens, and good having you. Rico, how are you?
Hi, Eric and everyone. I'm fine, thank you. And this is Rico Gao from China Mobile International, Germany. Greetings from Frankfurt. And we are one of the global carriers. And also our footprint on the data centers are now crossed over to Europe. And we have our own built data centers right now in Frankfurt, as well as in the UK, in Europe. And there's more coming. So this is definitely also a very interesting topic for us, and we're willing to hear the voices and also contribute to with our own ideas maybe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rico, and good having you. Horacio, welcome.
Welcome everybody. It's an honor for me to be invited to this webinar. And the Data Privacy Officer, going and Risk and Compliance Manager for the Telefónica operations in the US and Puerto Rico. And as I said, I'm glad that we're going to touch on this topic because there is a lot of talk about it, but little action in regards to it. So we'll get to see some points, interesting points on things that are basically had happened and will happen the way I see it in the future.
Thank you so much, Horacio, and honor having you here as well. So I think we go to Singapore. Josh.
Hi, this is Joshua. Thanks for having me. I'm based in Singapore, and in my day job, I manage a data facility that supports our scientific community. I also serve as the Singapore chapter lead for iMasons, and I think with iMasons we are very passionate and concerned about what we can do about sustainability.
Thank you so much, and great having you, Joshua. Thank you. And last but not least, we go to the UK. Chris, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Eric. Yeah, hi. I'm based or stuck in the UK at the moment, although China, we're building, developing a hyperscale infrastructure, data center infrastructure in mainland China. In fact, you might see behind me, that's our first data center, TJ1, in Tianjin, serving Beijing and northern China. Carrier neutral. We're focused on energy efficiency, of course. We're members of the iMasons. This is the first open compute project ready certified data center in China, all with a sort of, I guess, a focus on total cost of ownership and lowering that and energy efficiency and carbon footprint. So I'll be delighted to input as we go along, but yeah, really interested to see how this chat goes.
Thank you so much, Chris, and I hope you will not be too long stuck in the UK. You can start traveling soon. So we all hope that for everybody actually out there. So, so ladies and gentlemen, it is a huge panel with a huge amount of knowledge, which we're going to bring to you here at the CC Webinar Live session sponsored by Telefónica Global Solutions. So I would like to invite Horacio Delgado, and he's the Data Protection Officer, IT Governance, Risk, and yes, a mouthful, Compliance Manager for Telefónica Global Solutions in the USA. So Horacio, I'll invite you to share with us your presentation, and happy to listen to you, and please take it away.
Again, thank you for giving me this opportunity to share this information with not only with the panelists, but with the audience that is attending this webinar. The topic today is basically how operators like Telefónica or others are basically responding to the questions from businesses on how to make buildings and operating data center more sustainable. Okay, so I'm just going to begin to basically provide a little bit of a historic background. Okay, the sustainable development, that term first appeared in 1969 in a Congress where 33 African nations basically signed an agreement. And interesting enough, that was the same year that the Environment Protection Agency in the USA was created. However, 52 years later, we're still trying to balance that the growth and sustainability effectively when basically building or operating data centers. So I'm going to run really quick through some facts about sustainability. I would say the first one is that in the list of priorities of, from customers, resiliency and redundancy are higher on their list of priorities rather than sustainability. Sustainability, unfortunately, tends to be very down the list. And basically it's understandable because most businesses basically care when hosting their equipment on data centers about the resiliency, redundancy, and security of the data center where they host their data. An interesting fact is that the emissions from data centers will soon rival that of the airline industry. So we're talking about huge amount of CO2 emissions that are produced by data centers and basically will be higher than the entire airline industry. And it's also expected that by 2025, data centers would account for 3.2% of the world's carbon emissions. And 3 years ago, some data was basically produced that basically stated that data centers accounted for 17% of the technology overall carbon footprint produced. However, it is at this point, it's still not clear basically how much the carbon footprint of a data center is the overall carbon footprint related to the power usage or produced. As you may know, data center use a huge amount of water, not only for cooling, but for daily operations. I include here some specific statistic that came out in 2009, and which Amazon basically estimated that one single of their data center was using about 360,000 gallons of water every day for cooling, mostly for cooling purposes of the data center. Okay. Another interesting fact is that that contributes to the carbon footprint of operating data center is that in 2016, that's basically the closest statistic that I could find, is that 44.7 million tons of e-waste, basically servers that are basically no longer, that are put out of service, was created. And just 20% of that was a recycle. So we're talking about that also a data center create a huge amount of waste, okay, from operating data centers. There is also that basically I also want to point out that there are changes that are happening, mostly because the perception and of the public, and basically changes that are occurring in the industry that are decreasing the energy consumption by data centers, mostly on efficiencies created at data servers, storage, cooling practices, et cetera, et cetera. One thing that I want to share with you guys is that basically what is the current conversation about data center sustainability is currently focused, okay? From the energy efficiency point of view, it is focused on operational sustainability, basically making sure that the facilities, the data center facilities use as little power as possible, or try to use some green energy whenever possible, and have basically a minimal or even carbon negative impacts on the local area. That's from the energy efficiency point of view. However, from the construction point of view, okay, most of the conversation basically is centered about the impact on operations, how to cool the servers in more efficient ways, what to do with excess heat that the hardware generates in the different server rooms, whether the facility uses renewable power, as some of the big data center operators are basically trying to do. And if last, probably if some can opt for using different energy sources to operate the diesel generators. Now, the way I see it, data center operators basically can improve their sustainable ways of doing things. Basically, there are two ways of doing, the way that I see it is two ways of doing this. Basically, try to reducing the power consumed or reducing their carbon footprint of the building materials that they use when they construct their huge facilities. So moving along, okay, when I'm going to provide a list basically of some best practices, okay, or things that can be done in order to reduce the power consumption at data centers that any operator can basically try to do in order to lower their power consumption. This list is not by all means complete. It's not all inclusive. Okay. However, these are the things that basically can be done in order to improve the efficiency of currently operating data centers. Okay. And I would like to basically tell the audience that I'm going to the presentation, when I basically forward it to all of you, probably I will talk a little bit more about each of the items, how basically it is it is achieved through each one of these bullet points. As I only have about 15 minutes to this presentation, so I'm just going to run through it really quick. But for those who want to know a little bit more about, how a specific recommendation can be made or take advantage of, basically I will provide a more detailed description of how to achieve it. Okay, so I'm just going to go specifically really quick through this list. As I mentioned, one of the things that that can be done is super quick and easy. Basically, just turn off any equipment that is not being used or used at 100% capacity. Okay, as you may know, we in data centers we have many servers, and most of them sometimes they don't even reach 50% of their throughput capacity. So we can do away with those that equipment that is not fully utilized and lower our power consumption. As we can also virtualize servers, which is something that basically has been done for the past 10 years in order to make the hardware basically to get the most out of servers and storage. We can also consolidate storage, servers, implement data storage measures, like implementing SSDs, turn on CPU's power management features, use high efficiency power supplies, reduce energy losses from power distribution units, use high efficiency UPSs like lithium ion UPSs that are way more efficient than legacy UPSs. Adopt a power distribution from 480 volts to 208 or 200 volt or 230. There are several best practices for cooling that can be also be implemented to lower the power consumption of data centers. Among those, some of the things for cooling is to basically use containment enclosures that can basically trap or direct hot air or basically manage hot and cold air in better ways. Installing rack or indoor cooling. One of the things that I highly recommend is to use to basically at least once a year to conduct an energy audit of the data center to basically find out where most of the power is being consumed and address those specific findings that might come out of an audit. That is an effective way that anybody, any data center operator can do and basically try to control better their power consumption because you cannot control what you cannot see. So an energy audit is something that any data center operator can do and see where basically most of the power is being consumed or wasted in some instances. Some of the simple things that can be done is to switch on server side to barrel speed fans. Okay, they instead of running fans at 100%, basically use barrel speed fans that will use less electricity. Use liquid cooling also. The next one is to and this is quite effective, and I believe that most of the data centers basically do, is to raise the air temperature a little bit. Servers can run, they don't need to run at 65 degrees Fahrenheit. They can basically be run at a higher temperature and nothing will happen to them. So that is something that can be done, control, and is quite effective. As I mentioned before, switch to SSD drive, and basically have centers that basically monitor the airflow and the IT loads at a data center. That is from all this are basically things that can be done to reduce the power consumed at the data center, at already existing data center. Now, the other thing is basically one thing that we are looking at is to building data centers that are more energy efficient or more sustainable. And now we're looking at the building materials of those facilities. As you know, most of the data centers, well, all data centers huge. They use huge amounts of concrete and steel, and the production of those raw materials are huge pollutants, okay? An interesting fact is that also concrete accounts for 40% of data center construction, followed by fuel and steel, okay? Something also that I found interesting is that if we decide to build, if a company decides to build a new data center, most likely, in average, will result in 13% less carbon during construction. But however, repurposing an existing building saves more money because there are no raw materials that will go into the construction of that data center. Okay, as I indicate here in the last bullet, building a new facility creates 8 times as much carbon as repurposing. So upgrading an old building can save 70% of carbon emissions of construction. Now, let's talk about the current state of data center construction, okay? And the way they're looking at reducing their carbon footprint of the building materials used for the constructions of data centers. Currently, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, basically they have made a commitment already to, and not only have made a commitment, but they also have made significant investments in basically on using renewable energy for the data center facilities. One interesting fact that I found out that this year, the companies like Chindara, NTN, and IBM have made basically the same pledges as Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, and become carbon neutral before 2040. This is mostly because pushed by outright by the public, because the public is becoming more aware that these data centers basically are huge energy consumption units. Sorry. There are basically 2 standards about sustainability. One is the LEED, okay, but that standard basically usually focus entirely on the building's life cycle, and there is a another it's not a regulatory body, but there is a basically an entity that has created an open source tool that users can basically utilize to calculate basically their carbon footprint. Okay, and this tool can basically help companies that are building data centers to become more sustainable. Now, let's, how many minutes do I have left?
Horacio, you're already over it a little bit, but please take it away and let's move ahead. So just if you can wrap it up a little bit, then perfectly.
Okay, well, I would say that out of this basically screen, I would say that within the next 10 to 20 years, companies involved in the construction of data centers will start using more recycled and organic materials when constructing data center facilities. But one thing that I would like to basically to let people know is that all these initiatives basically we need to take into account the in order for this to really happen, we need legislation basically to come forward and to make data centers more sustainable. The European Union is moving forward ahead with new guidelines, okay, to build data centers, and the U.S. and other countries are lagging behind. But I guess that most likely this will be pushed by the public perception, and companies that build data centers will move into building or to making their data centers more sustainable. I just basically gonna run really quick. I basically work for Telefónica. We have 345 million customers, 48 billion euros in euros, and we operate in 14 different customers, 14 different countries. You can see some of the Telefónica Global Solutions is focused on B2B solutions, solely on B2B solutions, whereas Telefónica basically provides not only B2B solutions, but B2C. So this is all for me now. I will share this presentation with you all, and let's move ahead with the panelists and their questions.
Thank you so much, Horacio, and great and to know that Telefónica is one amongst, let's say, the global operators who are doing this. So very good to hear, and thank you very much for sharing your keynote presentation. So as Horacio already told us, let's move on, and I'm happy to invite all the panelists which introduced themselves already at the beginning of this webinar to all of us and to you, to the audience. So Iman, if I may immediately get into it, from your point of view, what are the carbon footprint sustainability challenges we are currently facing, and how can we address them? How do you see it?
Okay, definitely, as Horacio has explained, that the demand for the data has increased, and the demand for data increase, that means that the hyperscalers is the busiest time for them. So they are producing a lot of, let's say, carbon emissions because of the power consumptions, or because they are using more, let's say, power to process these data. So there are a lot, let's say, of ways of how to address these challenges. But before I get into this, I had read some interesting fact which I like to share here, is that there's a famous video clip on YouTube. It's called Despacito. It's a song. It's a very fun song. Everybody likes it. It has, as of today, it has 7 billion views. And the power consumed in downloading this video is equivalent to the power consumed by 5 countries in a single year. So that shows how much of power consumptions the data centers are using, and which in total consumed 3% of the power consumed by the entire world, which is, it's a lot. So one of the challenges, or one of the, let's say, ways of reducing the carbon emission is lowering the power usage effectiveness. And this is something in every organizations or data center strategy is to lower the PUE, because the lower you go, the lower power you are producing, the lower carbon emissions that you are also producing. In countries that they are lucky to have a fresh air, cold air, unlike my country, they are using a very nice fresh air cooling systems, which reduce 80% of the costs in running these data centers, and 50% reductions in the carbon emissions. Again, some of the data center facilities are built on a brownfield, like what we did with the Global Zone. It was actually a building that owned by Betelco. It was quite old. We did not demolish the entire building. We kept some of the, let's say, necessary facility as is, but the data center was built on fresh, let's say, constructions. The using of renewable energy, again, some they have huge solar farms, some they have hydro systems that generate power, and some use the wind. Some of the data centers, for example, they don't generate these renewable energies. They don't have, let's say, the capacity. So they actually buy these renewable energies from others, which called renewable energy credits. It's something very interesting, and it's not happening in this part of the world, but there are countries that they are buying electricity or power from the others. But having said that, we have to bear in mind that always the renewable energy will not be a major substance for the power because of the reliability. At the end of the day, your data center carries a lot of operations, a lot of processes where the power is very concerned for the IT people, which they need to have it on a reliable source. So we can say that the renewable energy is contributing to the green data center, but it cannot be as a major or the main source of energy. The other thing is that killing the zombie servers, as Horacio said, because there are servers, there is equipment in your data center residing there. You don't need them. They are only consuming power. The only problem with that, the IT people, they don't keep track of what content in these servers. So by having a proper inventory of what content each server has will help you to kill these servers eventually over the time. Some of the data centers are using a very old cooling systems, and this is additional power consumptions factor, which you need to be careful. You have to invest in that resources. Maybe, yes, it's a heavy investment at the beginning, but over a long term, if you think about it, on the operations, on the maintenance, it will reduce a lot of the power. The space itself, try to reduce the space of your data center. Don't make it too tiny. Don't make it too huge, because at the end of the day, you have to cool the entire space, the entire place. Use insulations, use, let's say, a streamlined airflow. The virtualizations, the technology itself in virtualization has helped a lot in reducing the power consumptions, because in virtualization or in service virtualizations, to be more specific, you are capitalizing, or you are getting more of capacity out of the server. So instead of stacking up your server with a lot of, instead of stacking up your data center with a lot of server, go to the virtualizations. Experiment the temperature. A lot of the IT people, they don't neglect the power because it's not on their head. The bills are paid by someone else. So if the IT take a measurements of the power and they can take the best level, they can reduce the power. So these all the factors that I've said will help let's say the data center facility providers or the operators to reduce the consumption of power, which ultimately contribute to the green data centers and sustainability energy.
Okay, thank you, Iman. Jens, quickly, from your point of view, what are the latest trends and developments in how data centers are designed and operated to become more energy efficient and greener? I mean, you're building one right now, right?
For some short words, I mean, it's what Horacio mentioned in his presentation. Yeah, newest technologies, reuse of energy, of heat, for instance, using water cooling systems, and of course, all these, using different materials that are less carbon intensive or at best carbon neutral. So these are kind of investments or development from the industry that helps us data center providers to reduce our carbon footprint, to work on a better power usage efficiency, so using less power, and of course. But I think from this, what I heard and saw overall, I have to say, I think we still have more questions than we have answers. because we know that it's like we know that the data are increasing. We know that the business models are increasing data, and they need to increase new data to build a new data center. Huge data fabrics that we see is it will remain, it will never become as green as we want them to be, because those business models behind, like if you look about blockchain technology, for instance, or crypto exchanges, those business models are not green efficient. They are not, and they can't be, and they are not designed for. They are designed to make money, for sure. So for us, and then so the dialogue only begun, even that Horacio said it's already 15 years ago since the discussion started. But I think now it's only really started. And I want to say one thing, and then I stop. I know we'll leave it also the time to the others. As a data center provider, if you look at let's take just one KPI, the power usage efficiency, right? It could be 1.2, 1.4, whatever. Make it as close to 1. It will never be 1. But the 1 is there anyway. The data center providers are the numbers behind the digit, right? So, and that's also need to be, for that, it should not be forgotten, because also, with the consolidation into a data center, we support already a better environment, because, I'm sure that all the inefficiency servers, climate cooling systems in each and any building or little server room it's much worse than a data center is.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, people should see that as well in, say, that picture. Chris, anything to add on some trends and developments in how data centers can be designed and operated?
Well, I think the first thing that we need to say is that data center operators aren't the ones that are using the power. It's the customers inside the data center and their customers. So, it's a part of this is about education. And using an old term from Kermit the Frog, being green isn't easy, right? And let's face it, the term green and sustainability has been around for a long time, but it's been about the greenback, about the dollar. And actually the green now and sustainability has become forefront of everyone's mind, because it is a commercial impact from the end users' expectations, from their consumers. And so, absolutely, it's about energy efficiency. It's about using technologies that use less energy. And as Jens just said there, we talked about power use of effectiveness. And, from a China perspective, our data centers are operating at less than 1.2 PUE, and we're working towards to get as close as 1 as possible. But it's the 1 that's important, the actual 1 in the first place, which is the usage, the IT usage. And historically and currently, unless you're a Google or an Azure platform, an AWS, where they control their own infrastructure and then have complete control over their IT, they're looking at getting the maximum bang for buck of every compute cycle. And actually, that's the other thing that I think that needs to be concentrated on, is that the IT part of this is absolutely critical. So as a data center operator, we're working as best we can, aligning ourselves with the likes of ASHRAE, where they're increasing temperatures of server usage, which lowers the carbon footprint. Looking at new technologies, using air to cool really isn't that efficient, actually. So now going back to the old sort of IBM mainframes and having liquid to the chips. So, we're working as a business, Chara, with the Open Compute Project, with iMasons, with Uptime Institute and so on, and the Chinese regulators, to make sure that what we're designing and developing has 3 parts of it. It's economically sustainable, it's environmentally sustainable, and it's ethically sustainable. So working with our customers, working with the market to make sure that their consumers are educated, that they're the ones that are actually using this power. And we, as much as we can control, renewable energy contracts, energy storage, fuel cells, technology that reduces carbon footprint but doesn't impact on reliability and sustainability, is something that we're actually, driven to. So our engineering teams our operations teams are constantly working to make sure that we operate, design and build as energy as efficient as possible, but also in line with industry expectations. So, you know, interestingly, you know, in RFPs now, you used to get the RFP, you had to have ISO 9001, 27001. They're now bringing out 14001, which is the environmental management, because everybody's talking about carbon neutral, carbon net by 2025, 2030. So we're working in line with what our customers expect. But as I said again, the key thing here is that, you know, we're not using the power. We're developing and making sure that our infrastructure is as energy as efficient with our customers.
So Rico, and a quick one for you. I mean, we need to do a lot in our data centers. We need to, you know, be better, be greener, be what, even if you call it Kermit, yes or not, because it is not easy, but it costs a huge amount of money, and especially on the financing. Where do you think, it's actually two questions, where are the main obstacles for you know, for the operators to face, you know, implementing, let's say, sustainable data center solutions, and how difficult is it to attract money or to allocate in the budgets the investments on it?
Well, actually, for the data centers operators, there are two parts. You have already mentioned one thing, and also Jens and Chris also mentioned that to build a data center or in the planning phase, it's a lot of CapEx investment. So before it's all about actually money and growing, right? There's a balance between this, especially at the very beginning. Of course, for long-term good, I guess it's perfectly covered with each other, but at the very beginning with the CapEx, there must be a way to find out, and there must be a motivation for the data center operators to finance, and at the very beginning with a more, let's say, greener, to build a greener data center, to adopt the very best practice on the cooling system and also the plans. And also another point is that for the rack density, right now, most of the data centers would put everything as much as possible. That will cost a lot of the power supply actually. So basically, this is also financing, and also the short-term return investment would be the very, very key obstacles to put the green data center in a plan. But actually, for a long-term good, and also the social responsibilities, as well as Chris mentioned about the later on, all the IT managers who is going to decide which partner of data center they're going to use. I think green or sustainability must be a part of the decision-making chain or making point. So this one thing to add on about Chris' suggestions, mainly the power consumption inside the data center, and I guess we also have to consider a power contract with cleaner energy, for example. And for example, what we're doing in Germany with our own data center is we're looking for in the market a new contract with as much as possible the cleaner energy power supplies. In that case, it will be definitely make the solution, the data center, more green, and also to contribute to not only to our end customers who is using this data center, but also to the communities as a part of the community member.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Thank you, Rico. Horacio, I mean, you being one of the big operators in the world, how do you face it? I mean, the main obstacles, and maybe you can quickly touch down a little bit, let's say, on the financing thing, on the green financing, because I can imagine allocating this money is not always easy.
Not only is not easy, but again, as I mentioned at the beginning, most of the drivers by companies is not easy, but again, as I mentioned at the beginning, most of the drivers by companies when basically hosting their operations on a data center is mostly related to resiliency and security, and not sustainability. So that's why I said that basically, as long as we don't have legislation that pushes for these big companies to build or construct data centers in a more sustainable way, I don't think this is going to be a priority for the big operators. I mean, they're facing the public outcry. Basically, some people are, are wanting for them to be more sustainable, but that is what is driving them. It's not, but they're not going to really move forward until there is a legislation that forces them to be more creative when using better building materials when constructing these big facilities.
Mm-hmm. No, sure. Okay. Iman, you as an operator, I mean, maybe you want to add something to it?
Yes, just wanted to add that it's the idea of creating a data centers as operators was not only to provide the co-location services, but also the, let's say, the entire digital ecosystem that we have built. We are not building data centers. We are outsourcing these data centers facilities to be built by someone else, but the RFP, the specifications are written by us. Again, maybe the power cost at this part of the world, especially in my country, is relatively cheap. So we did not take that strategy forward. Yes, we started with the small bets of the virtualization, let's say, of reducing the PoE in our data centers, but I foresee that there is a bigger roadmap that we have to take in order to be liable to the environment and being more friendly to our community.
Okay. Joshua, I mean, you are overlooking the whole infrastructure thing with the infrastructure masons, of course. So just a quick one, where do you see the, let's say, the trend and developments and let's say the drivers for the future?
Sure. I'm just going to share a country perspective. I echo what the other panelists have put very eloquently. We can, we will, we must. And part of that is getting different perspectives from different stakeholders, not just within industry, but I think academia, consumer, industry, governments coming together, ideating, finding new ways to do things. So for example, when many years ago, a generation ago, when someone found a way to create subsea cables, it changed the world. I think we need to continue to find ways to change the world. And it could mean a better way of connecting. It could mean a better way of powering equipment. That's an ongoing conversation. And I don't think we can do it any justice in a span of, I think, even 6 hours. But suffice to say that there are a lot of interesting developments. So for example, I think we have mutual friends like with John Leban, with John Summers, where they're thinking about how within academia, can we do a test bed? Can we get certain learning points in the Northern Hemisphere? Even in Singapore, there are similar efforts where the universities have come together to test bed certain technologies to see if there's a better way to build, run, operate data centers, even in, shall we say, a more tropical climate. So academia has a part to play. Government has a part to play. Industry has a part to play, and consumers have a part to play. So it's not a simple conversation. I think by coming together, hopefully we will find new ideas and also new inspiration.
Thank you. Very well put, Joshua. Thank you so much. So Jens, how do you, I mean, you just built again and are actually working on it as we speak, actually day in, day out, building in a new data center, Jens, in Germany. So what do you think is coming, let's say, in the near future? I mean, as Joshua mentioned, we have to, no, we must. And you're implementing it as we speak, and I know this, and reuse the heat as well, and everything which is as new as can be. But what do you think is, let's say, in the near future coming to us? Well, what can we expect, let's say, out of the data center landscape? What is your view? Although I know you do not have the glass bowl, but please try.
I believe, as we are not comparable to the gentleman here and the lady from the size of the data centers, right? So we're a little bit smaller, and we're a little bit more on the edge. And what I think is that the landscape of data center will grow, but not necessarily with this giant data halls that we currently see. I think there will be more room, and this is because it helps a little bit to decentralize, not from the technology point of view, but support the business where it's generated. So I think we will see a little bit more edge data centers coming. They need simply, and you will see, what is positively making the business case work is what is the energy cost, of course, right? And what is the telecommunication cost, and how good are you connected to the next exchange point. And then you will have a real chance also for data centers, for instance, of our size, or even somewhat a little bit bigger at the edge. So I think the landscape will see more data centers coming to the landscape. I would not say niche players, but we will have our playground as well.
Thank you very much. And let's stay in Germany and let's stay with Rico, or go to Rico, because Rico also just built a new data center in Germany with China Mobile International. So Rico, what do you think can we, let's say, see or expect, or what will be a trend for the near future?
Well, I think first of all, it would be a long journey to reach that point, as Jens already also mentioned that we're just at the starting point. So, but for the future, what I can see, or we could see, is all about methodology and technology to finally to get to the sustainability, that point. So everybody is involved, not really, as you mentioned, Eric, not only the data center itself is involved, but also involved the financing sector, and also the energy power supply, as well as the other technology sectors, which who will make together, to work together, to share together, to build in the end a green data center with sustainability, and also a new, probably different new business models, which involves or pay back to this green data center solutions, and of course new trends on the data center industry, I guess.
Okay, perfect. Iman,
yeah.
And thank you, Rico. Iman, I mean, it is not always easy to especially not in these times, and of course we're living still in the coronavirus pandemic era. So how do you think it will, for the future, even more, let's say, have an impact on let's say on the data center landscape for the operators? What do you think?
Yes, because at the end of the day, we said that there are correlations between the data center and the demand for the IP. So the concepts of working from home or stay at home concept, which you are learning from home, you are entertaining yourself at home, or you are learning from home, has made the hyperscalers busy at this time of the pandemic. So, and the hyperscalers, their main concern is the efficiency. And so I can see that coronavirus, the pandemic itself, are helping the hyperscalers to build their data centers with more focus on the green data centers, because the efficiency is one way. The other thing is that with coronavirus, the cost of the servers, the cost of the storage has gone up, and the supply chain of the hardware has also been slowed down. So the data center operators are now, they are not getting or disposing their old data hardwares, but rather they are capitalizing, reusing, refreshing them, because it's a very tough time. They have to slow down on their expenditures. So coronavirus, has also helped in the automations of the data center, because today you can see less people in the data centers maintaining, operating, and I can see that this will continue even after the pandemic. So the automations come into the process enhancement, especially with the hyperscalers, again, because the efficiency is a major factor for them.
We are almost at the end of this on this webinar, but already Jens and I think Chris, they have to leave. Or Chris, do you still have, let's say, a last thing for us to share? How do you see the future? Are you off already?
Gone. He's gone.
He's gone already. Okay,
you guys
then
have to leave too. Thanks everybody.
Thank you so much, Jens. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time and very soon. I know. So, Joshua, just quickly to you, how do you see the future? Just to wrap it up.
Sure. I think there's no lack of imagination. There's no lack of enthusiasm. There's no lack of money being spent. It's political will. It's getting different people to come together to make things work. But I believe that we should be cautiously optimistic, because we've been trying such imaginative things. We have done liquid immersion. We have tried to put compute under the sea, on water. And I think we've done things, even things like direct chip to cooling. So there are many ways. The devil's in the details. I think what we need to do now is to keep the faith, stay focused, and I think when we get different bodies to come together to talk about it, it's not just within industry. I think this conversation needs to be extended as what iMasons has done. Talk to governments, because through governments, we talk about even procurement templates. Talk to academia, because academia is working together with corporations, together with manufacturers, and together with operators about what sort of hardware we're going to use. So it's not just, you know, there are billions of us on the same boat. I think it's unrealistic to expect 600 of us to steer the boat, where the remaining billions on the same boat are watching, clapping. It's good to clap, it's good to cheer, but it has to be a global team sport. So let's get governments involved, let's get academia involved, let's get consumers involved, because I think it's come to a point where our consumers, our customers, corporate customers, they become a lot more shrewd. Their needs have become a lot more, shall we say, instrumented. They're no longer just concerned about reliability. They're also concerned about, let's be reliable, but let's get an ESG score that is favorable to my board. Let's work on the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. So it's no longer in black and white. Now, in that climate, I think there are lots of opportunities to get it right. And at the same time, I don't think we're sacrificing the business sense. We're simply accepting that a sustainable business is also good business. So we just have to keep the faith.
Absolutely. Thank you for your wise words, Joshua. So last but not least, Horacio, what can you share with us? How do you see, let's say, the near future, the future becoming?
I totally agree with what Joshua just mentioned, and I would basically add basically a couple things that one thing that I didn't mention before, and reiterate basically my last point, which is I believe that indeed that the well, first of all, most likely most of the public, they don't know how they have no idea of the carbon footprint that is involved in getting their messages through WhatsApp or watching Netflix or just sending emails. Okay, so I believe that, you know, if we make better efforts at letting people know of that carbon footprint that is generated to make that happen, people will basically push for changes, okay, because of the perception, okay, that that they will gain, that this industry is generates or involves a lot of power generation or consumes a lot of power, and the carbon footprint of the industry is very large. And second, basically, I reiterate my point that the best way to encourage sustainability among companies and countries is to make regulatory changes to basically push changes in the industry, so on how things are built and operated.
Thank you very much, Horacio, and ladies and gentlemen, with the last words of Horacio, we come actually to the end of this CC webinar sponsored by Telefónica Global Solutions, which we thank really dearly. And first of all, Horacio, thank you very much for your for your keynote presentation, and I think we learned a lot, and we understand actually a bit more now. Of course, the sponsor Telefónica Global Solutions, we want to thank you, we both of that for being here. Next to that, of course, with all the honors to Miss Iman Zulfi, Chris, who already left us, Rico, of course, thank you so much. Jens left us as well, but officially thank you so much, and Joshua, my regards to Singapore as always. And ladies and gentlemen, today we were talking about the data centers with the end in mind. So how operators are responding to the calls outside for a more sustainable way of building and operating data centers. And I would like to thank again, for last time, all the panelists, Horacio and Telefónica, for being here. And of course, you out there for listening to us and being with us. So thank you again. Ciao for now. And it's back to the studio in Berlin. See you next time. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Dear all, we are at the end of this webinar session, and I would like to thank to our speakers for sharing their knowledge with us. Also, thank you to the audience for participating and listening. This panel will be soon available to watch on the CC Media portal. We are looking forward to welcoming you at both virtual and physical events this year. Please visit our events portal for more information. If you are interested in sponsoring one of our future branded webinars, please do contact CC team. For all the updates and fresh content, please follow us on social media. Also, subscribe to our Telegram news channel to receive exclusive invitations to our upcoming CC-Webinar.live sessions. Stay safe and healthy. Goodbye.